Nina Shea joins us in a moment, but first, more news. Asia Bibi, the Pakistani Catholic woman who was sentenced to death and then last week acquitted of blasphemy charges, has finally been released from jail. Thousands of protesters throughout Pakistan were calling for Bibi to be publicly hung for allegedly insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Bibi's whereabouts are being kept a closely guarded secret until she can be transported out of the country safely. The European Parliament has made an offer to protect Bibi and her family. Here with an update on this situation is the director of the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute, Nina Shea. Nina, welcome back to the show.
Great to be with you.
Great to see you as always. Give our audience a background. I mentioned in the story up top, Asia Bibi arrested for supposedly blaspheming against Muhammad. Paint the picture of the circumstances and what she's actually charged with doing.
Okay, Asia Bibi is a Catholic mother of several children. She was a field hand 9 years ago in the hot sun in Pakistan. She went to get a drink of water for herself and her fellow field hands, other women from her village, and she took a sip from the cup. And that's what started it. And they got into some hot words, as she said. They argued back and forth. And eventually the women turned her in through their imam, and their testimony has been totally inconsistent, but they accused her of blasphemy, of saying critical things about their prophet, the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Asia Bibi has always denied this. This is a capital offense under the Section 295C in the Pakistan Penal Code. Wow. In Pakistan, you are hanged. You go to the gallows for insulting the prophet. And the insult can be anything. It could be throwing away, and this is an actual case, a calendar page with a picture of the prophet on it.
What?
It could be doing something, this happened in Sudan, naming a teddy bear after a boy in the classroom whose name was Muhammad.
Oh, no.
And the children voted to do it, and the teacher almost lost her life. So it's undefined, it's subjective feeling what is an insult. So she was then put in prison, and her life is at risk from assassins. And I had a friend, I don't know if you knew him, Raymond, his name was Shahbaz Bhatti. He was the only Christian cabinet member in Pakistan who was murdered on his way to work because he defended her and opposed the blasphemy law being used against the Christian minorities and the Ahmadiyya minority, which is another, and the Hindu minority.
Yep,
another minority group. So he opposed that. He was killed. The governor of Punjab, the largest province in Pakistan, was also murdered by his own security detail in Pakistan. This is for defending her, for defending Asia Bibi. All these years, people have grown silent in defending her inside because they learned that if you defend her,
you die.
You die. And so now we're at the point where the court has run its course after 9 years. And
but the Supreme Court came out and said her accusers were lying.
Yes.
They basically vacated the case, and she was supposed to be freed.
They overturned the case, and there was negligence there. They should have known that as soon as they announced this, this would create mayhem.
A firestorm.
Within the country, and it did. And the government, in these situations, happened so many times before that I've been following this over the last, 20 years. They had to shut down the internet, they have to shut down the cell phone coverage, they have to shut down all the social media to try to calm things down. And still, they were shutting down the schools, the traffic. People couldn't go to mass. Catholic schools were closed. It's created havoc because there's a mass hysteria that's directed against these religious minorities, especially the Christians and the Ahmadiyya. So,
were you surprised by the level of that blowback after all this time, that these Islamic fundamentalists would be so engaged and enraged over a nearly decade-old case?
Quite the contrary. I was totally expecting this reaction, and I think that they should have expected this reaction. I met Asia Bibi's husband and children, one of their daughters, 2 years ago. And at that time, the husband told me that he had just spoken with the High Court in Pakistan, and the justice told him that she was innocent and would be freed as soon as things cooled down. That was 2 years ago, actually 2.5 years ago. And of course it didn't happen then because the rioting started as soon as that rumor started. And here we are again. But things have gotten much worse in Pakistan. It's in a free fall of Islamic extremism, of fundamentalism. And that's what's so frightening here. And we have to pay attention to this, Raymond, because there are geopolitical consequences. Pakistan has the Sunni bomb. They have the atomic bomb, the nuclear bomb. So, you know, this is a country that has been barely kept under control. This is the country where Malala, the little girl who advocated, I think she went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize. She was advocating school and education for girls. And the extremists came after her, found her on a school bus, and shot her point blank in the head. Miraculously, she survived that. And she then went on to win the Nobel Prize. But this is the kind of fanaticism that you're seeing in a country that's very strategic and is very well armed.
These fundamentalists you mentioned have also threatened the justices who ruled in favor of overturning Asia Bibi's sentence, as well as her lawyer, who's fled the country and he's now in the Netherlands. Earlier this week, Bibi's lawyer spoke about the case from The Hague during a news conference. Here's what he had to say about defending her.
I think she deserved everything from the Western world, that the life she has spent till date was not a deserving life. And as far as myself is concerned, I being a Muslim, it was really very, very difficult task to make the people understanding that why I am defending a Christian woman. And I said, the lawyers, the judges, the doctors don't have religions. They only go for their cause, and they only see the evidence, and they only fight for justice, and they only see no one should be condemned unless there's evidence up to the standard.
Now, her lawyer is on the run. Can he really defend her from the Netherlands when we should say the Supreme Court has a petition to review the case before it? Might the overturning of this case get overturned?
It's quite possible. Anything could happen because, as you said, the justice is on the line now. His life is on the line. And there's an ever-expanding circle of people, the jailer who lets her out, the driver who drives her to the airport. Any of those people could be killed. They have been threatened. Anybody who facilitates her escape. And this has happened. There have been acquitted defendants murdered on the steps of the Supreme Court in Pakistan. Wow. Judges, lawyers killed, and human rights defenders and journalists are also very much a targeted group over there.
Give me your sense about these blasphemy laws. We have talked about these in the past, and in Pakistan. In 1986, just to give people some historical perspective, General Zia added a new clause that mandated the death penalty for anyone who blasphemed the Prophet. Now, between 1927 and 1986, there were 7 cases. In 2015 alone, it reached 1,300 cases plus. What is happening, and what can we in the West do about it?
Well, these kinds of laws, and by the way, I feel the same way about the hate speech laws, and they are proxies in Europe now for Muslim blasphemy laws. The more that you stir sensibilities about being insulted and offended, the more you feel insult and affront, and that you demand even greater protections from this kind of insult. So it's a circular process. They should be abolished. It's going to be extremely hard to rescind the blasphemy laws because of this culture now. It's a chicken and egg. How do you calm down the culture when you have a law that's actually inciting this? And it's incited by the mosques. It's incited on the internet. It's incited within, the village and many, many times for political.
Well, and anybody who speaks out, if you were in Pakistan, you would be blaspheming.
That's
by
right.
trying to roll back the law.
Right, and that's why Shahbaz Bhatti and the governor of Punjab were killed, because they were accused of blasphemy for criticizing the blasphemy law.
Outrageous.
And you know that it's blasphemous, it's considered blasphemous to present evidence in court of blasphemy. So we don't even know what Asia Bibi said, because it would have been blasphemous to bring forward
release
the
it.
evidence. Yes.
Oh my
Now
God.
she is, of course, a confessor of the faith. That's what the Catholic Church would call her. She's not a martyr. Hopefully she won't be a martyr.
She's a white martyr for all the years she's been in
But for
prison.
all the years on death row, she had to cook her own food. She was afraid of being poisoned. And that's the thing. If the courts don't carry out, take her to the gallows, the society will. The fanatics in the society will do that.
And we should tell people she's been attacked in prison. She's been targeted in prison. When this first went down, the mob went to her house and beat the daylights out of her before they
Yes.
finally convicted her.
Yes.
I mean, so this is, we are talking about a brutality. I love these people who are worried about women's rights, human
Yeah.
rights. Where are they? Where
Right.
are the Western human rights and women's rights groups here, Nina?
Yeah, and I think the church could be doing more for her too, Raymond. She could have gotten off if she had converted to Islam, and she stuck to her faith and identifies as a Catholic, as a Christian. I know the Pope has prayed for her, has given her a rosary to her family. But I think that we are not barely conscious of this suffering that's going on in Pakistan and other places as well.
Asia Bibi's husband has appealed to the United States, to President Trump, British Prime Minister Theresa May, to help the family leave Pakistan, where he said their lives are in danger. Watch.
I am Ashik Masih, the husband of Asia Bibi. I am requesting to the Prime Minister of United Kingdom to help us. I am requesting the Mr. Donald Trump, the President of USA. We are in trouble in Pakistan. Please help us.
What is the response of the White House? What has Parliament and the Prime Minister said in England?
Well, in several countries have offered, are involved in conversations.
Primarily Italy, right?
Italy and Canada are involved, have admitted that they're involved in sensitive negotiations about her, which is encouraging to me. Several other countries have given her asylum already years ago in Europe.
But they have to get her out. They won't release her. Even though she's free, she's in an undisclosed
That's right.
location now in
And
Pakistan.
you know, others, you know, Lord David Alton, a wonderful Catholic leader over in the Parliament in the UK, he has been on the floor asking questions about his own government, about the amount of money that they fund Pakistan on a daily basis. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars every day. And so that's leverage. The United States has leverage too. We just cut about $300 million from their defense aid, but they are now asking for a $12 billion, Pakistan is asking for a $12 billion loan from the IMF. We have a lot of influence there. We fund heavily the IMF. We should be putting some penalties on this too.
I want to shift gears for a moment. We'll continue to monitor Asia
Great.
Bibi's
Thank you so
case, and
much,
I want you to come back and update us, particularly if there's a movement here.
It's very rare to see, I just want to point out, to see a government doing this kind of persecution against a helpless, illiterate a Christian woman. It's unusual in today's world. Usually there are mobs, there's ISIS,
Right, it's a
and,
little
and the
tribe
government
or-
is acting like a terror group almost in this prosecution of her.
Remarkable. Let's talk about those cops that were martyred last week in the bus. This story is very, very reminiscent of what we heard a year ago.
Yeah. In 2017, the same pilgrimage route was attacked by ISIS, and there were a couple dozen killed, including an American at that time. These were Christians going to a pilgrimage in a monastery, St. Samuel, in outside of Cairo. I was just there.
Yeah, you were just there. What's the situation in Cairo?
Well, there are problems. You'll see churches everywhere in Cairo, and it was so that there are, you know, the cops are the ancient Christians that have been there for 2,000 years.
The original Egyptians.
Right. In fact, Cop means Egypt in
Right.
Greek. And their cathedral was attacked for the first time in December 16, and I went there. The compound worshipers, mostly women, suicide bomber while they were praying. And I visited that compound, and there the Coptic Church has Orthodox Church has put up a poster, and it was so jarring for me to see this. It really brought it home. These were modern female faces, photographs, rows of them. They're all martyred. They're all killed in that church bombing with the crown of martyrdom on each of their heads. And so there are two sources of persecution in Egypt. One is this ISIS and fanatical terror groups, Islamist terror groups, and that's who attacked these pilgrims and who bombed these churches. And then there's the local neighbors who are fanaticized, much like Pakistan, and they are not punished. And they've burned 500 churches in 5 years in the rural areas of Egypt, and there is no justice for them. It's done with impunity.
Unbelievable.
And they just, and the government just turns a blind eye.
Nina Shea, thank you for
Thank
all
you.
your hard work that you've done for what, decades now?
Decades.
Continuing to, you know,
Thanks so
hold
much,
the
Raymond.
torch.
And
It's
I've
so
been on your
important.
show since the beginning.
I know. Well, you really, thank you for what
Thank
you do.
you.
And you can follow Nina Shea and her work at the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute. You can find them at hudson.org.